Hi, I'm Dave Padilla, former Contra Costa County Bureau Chief for KCBS. Welcome to a forum of candidates running for the 11th District State Assembly seat in the June 5th primary election. The 11th District includes Antioch, Oakley, Brentwood, Discovery Bay, Knightson, Byron, Bethel Island, and part of Pittsburgh. This forum is sponsored by the Contra Costa Elections Division, the League of Women Voters of Diablo Valley, and the League of Women Voters of West Contra Costa County. We're recording these roundtables here in the studio of Contra Costa Television with some crew assistance from the city of Walnut Creek. A state assembly member's responsibilities include decisions on state taxes, car registrations and licenses, unemployment and minimum wage, transportation and roads, state prisons, fish and wildlife, education funding, veteran services, dam and levee repairs and maintenance, health care, and of course, the state budget. The candidates are incumbent State Assemblyman Jim Frazier and challenger Diane Stewart, Lisa Romero, who was not able to join us today. We drew lots before the show to determine the speaking order, so we will begin with Assemblymember Jim Frazier. Assemblymember Frazier, if you're re-elected, what is going to be your first priority?
Thank you, Dave. My first priority is going to be working on the special needs population in California. It's been absolutely ignored for the last decade. It's through recessions, they've been cutting resources, and the population has grown dramatically. And so we're looking at a possibility of absolutely devastating people's success rates coming out of these challenges. Recently, the Speaker had appointed me as the chairman of the Select Committee for the Intellectual and Developmental Disability Population of California. So with that process moving forward, upon my other duties in the Capitol, as all of the other things that you've mentioned, I think we need to be taking a hard look on how we can help this population become more successful, because the developmental centers are closing in California, and that population will be integrated into neighborhoods.
So how would you help them?
Well, I have bills right now that are talking about integrated workforce training. The education system is responsible for these children and young adults until the age of 22 to life skills. But there's no training programs that would integrate them into the workforce so they could be successful. And with this investment, we will be able to take them off the assistance roles, a large majority of them. And so I'm looking forward on that process. That's just one of the many things that I'm looking forward to accomplishing.
Okay. Ms. Stewart, if you're elected, what would be your first priority?
My first priority is to getting full and fair funding for public schools. As a school board member of the Byron Union School District, I have found it extremely challenging for us to meet the needs of our students with the funding that's been provided by the state. In recent times, this last year, as a matter of fact, many districts across the state had to cut a lot of their budget, had to cut, some districts $25 million. Luckily, our district, we had to cut $1.2 million. We're a smaller district, but it affected us gravely. We had to cut teachers. Nobody likes to cut teachers. We had to cut aids to our students. Without these aids, our students have less of a chance of succeeding. And the other thing I found with the school budget, the fact that 80% of the budget goes to salaries, the fact that districts are having to spend so much in stirs and purrs, the high cost of medical and retirement. When the state brought that burden onto the districts, it's becoming too much. So we need to get full and fair funding, because of a $17 million budget in our district, to only have $2 million available to students, it's not fair. You don't get to offer them many programs. We're not offering them many services. And as Assemblymember Frazier mentioned, a large part of our resources go to our special needs students. And there's a bigger population of that.
Well, from schools to housing, of course, we all know here in California, we have a housing crisis. And I'll start with you this time. Everyone seems to agree that we need more funding for schools, and we need more funding for affordable housing. People are having a hard time right now. People are leaving California as a result of the housing crisis. If you were elected, where would that money come from, and how should it be spent? On who should it be spent?
If I'm elected, I actually believe that we need to start giving some more tax write-offs to rental property owners. You know, giving them incentives for offering lower rents to people so that people can afford to stay in California. We need people to stay in California. Our state can't survive with the population only being the movie stars, well-paid athletes, and CEOs. Our bread and butter for our state, which is the 6th largest economy in the world, comes from our everyday workers. Where the money would come from, I would have to work with other organizations. But if we can start off by offering some kind of incentives, because rental property owners, they're not seeing profit. They're not meeting their payments, and renters are not renting, and properties are becoming foreclosed. We need to address that and fix it so we can keep people in California.
Okay. Assemblyman, how do you see this issue?
So I'm a general contractor by trade and have built homes for 35 years. And there really is a misnomer about affordable housing in California. And one of the things that we have to look at is how the process starts. One of the things that is desperately needed is inventory. That's how we become affordable. And by streamlining processes, by permitting and incentivizing workforce development and moving people into their jobs into their area so they're not commuting in affordable places to work and live is one of the aspects. But again, permitting is a huge problem. Land affordability is also a big problem going forward. And so we have to look at how we work with local governments as imperative that we work with local governments. We cannot force and should not force local governments to be forced and managed in that way. But by working with them, because one size doesn't fit all, that we can work on some kind of permitting streamlining process, look at incentives for land use, and also in building codes in some of the development areas where you have a 35-foot height restriction, instead of a horizontal footprint of houses, but going vertical. And making sure that we can get density bonuses for the affordable housing. But you know, we've been working on this. We passed a housing bond this last year. Mm-hmm. We're crafting an expenditure plan, how to best use it. And I think that incorporating a homeless aspect also that has transitional housing that is attached to programs. Programs are essential, that we have people that can get work after they've been helped out, and not helped out, but a hand up, right? Mm-hmm. Working forward towards that aspect of making sure that people have success.
Well, it seems on this particular issue that sometimes there is inventory, but it's priced so high, it's marked as affordable, but it's only affordable to those mm-hmm. with large incomes. I'm wondering, how can you get it down to the point to where people who make a modest income can still afford to live in the communities they grew up in? San Francisco, for example, is losing its African-American population because they're being pushed out by housing rates and rents, and the fact that there really is nothing available for them to afford. So how do you make those two come together?
Well, and again, income is based on their ability to make money. Mm-hmm. And the tech companies that have surrounded themselves in San Francisco have brought a workforce that can afford that. So we need to be able to combat that with training and promoting success through any kind of job skills that we can provide that living wage in those areas. And living wage, I mean by being able to afford housing also. And that's one of the things that I'd like to work on is in areas where people are commuting, is working with local government to require a certain amount of jobs with their housing numbers. That we have jobs that are created that support the surrounding community also, instead of making bedroom communities and commuting and having to commute to make a living wage, that we actually bring the jobs to the people and make sure that that process starts.
Ms. Stewart, these issues are interconnected, affordable housing, business, especially small business, because that's what really makes the local communities run. So what would be your top 3 priorities for small businesses to ensure that they can be in the communities that they love?
The most important thing to a small business is to know that you are earning a profit. In California today, small businesses, as soon as they have a slight profit, they get taxed. We can't keep taxing and overtaxing our small businesses. They will again leave and run out. Also, the rental prices of the facilities, again, are something that are too high, and they keep getting moved out because commercial property owners want to continue to raise the rents. I do agree that we need to start bringing jobs back to our community. Our parents are commuting way too far, which it keeps them from being able to have a nucleus of their family and raise their kids and give them better values so that they become better citizens. We have a lot of retail places that are open and empty and foreclosed on. Big companies like Google, instead of building another big campus someplace, rent out those facilities and make them satellite facilities for your employees that can work from that location. That way they're closer to home. They can be there for their kids' activities and their schools and for dinners and everything that family needs to get back on track to making our community stronger.
Assemblyman, again, we're talking about an issue where small business, it's been in a particular building for so long, a commercial developer comes in and says, you know what, let's hike that rent up a little bit, and the person who's running that business says, I can't afford it, I've got to shut it down, and before you know it, another small business is left. What do you think the solution might be? So
we do have alternatives for that. The governor has the Office of Business, Go Biz, and when situations like that are happening, we engage, that business owner generally calls my office, and we engage with Go Biz and local government to make sure that we can help cite that business and continue to help it foster success. And so it's not that they're alienated. We also do a lot of somewhat town halls, bringing state government and city government and county government to locations in our district so that small business can meet with them and find out what alternatives also are happening. You know, one of the things that we have to do with small businesses is recognize that the regulations in California are pretty constrictive. And as a former small business owner who signed the front of a paycheck for 23 years plus, I get that concept and how we work with it. I cited a business in Vacaville, Icon Aircraft, who was at their wits' end trying to make a deal with the city of Vacaville. We're going to go to Arizona or Texas, and we were able to, through the governor and the county and the city partnership and ourselves, we were able to site that airplane manufacturer in Vacaville, 500 jobs, they had 1,500 deposits on their airplanes, and they're producing and making tax increment for not only Vacaville, but the citizens of Vacaville have an opportunity to work. So it's just about knowing the resources and how to work with it, but we'll engage with any small business owner. I mean, that was my life.
Sometimes you have to be creative with solutions here. And of course, marijuana is now legal here in California. It's worked in other places where you have millions of dollars coming in to the state, where the respective states. I'm wondering, could the marijuana revenue in any way be a solution, or at least a partial solution, to some of California's funding woes?
You know, Dave, that's absolutely true. It can be, but it has to be done right. Colorado ran into a lot of problems when they implemented the ability to do that. Right now, it's still a Class 1 drug by the federal government. So there is no banking that can be done, and the banks won't take cash, and that's what's happening to this point. A lot of the cities in the 11th Assembly District also have moratoriums on dispensaries. And so there's not one size fits all. There's a couple cities, Rio Vista, and I think Sassoon now has just recently approved going forward with that. But again, another one of the things that really troubles me as a father who lost a daughter in a car accident, that there is no way to measure impairment for marijuana when you're driving. I've ran bills in the Capitol to start that process, but the scientific proof is not there yet to be able to determine that. We actually had a highway patrolman that was killed recently due to alcohol and marijuana impairment, and it really troubles me that we're pushing this really fast for revenue when we can actually hurt people in the process.
Ms. Stewart, your thoughts on using marijuana revenue for the state of California?
It's like when we increase the cigarette tax. We always say we're increasing this tax, we're increasing the gas tax so that we can generate more funding for projects that need to be done. The problem comes when that money and that revenue comes to the government. Is it being handled correctly or is it being misappropriated? The citizens have spoken. They want marijuana to be legalized, and we can abide by that. We just need to monitor. I agree with the Assembly member. Knowing what the effect is you can't tell. Okay, I drive for Lyft. I'm a Lyft driver. I really appreciate that they came down on new regulations on if a driver, which you never should be under the influence of anything when you're driving other passengers. But passengers get into my vehicle and I can smell heavy marijuana on them. And it really concerns me. I understand you have the ability to use it at home, but when you step out into public, totally different situation. And you need to be responsible about your use of it. You need to not drive with it. But the revenues that come from it, we need to be responsible for really giving back to California what we need to build our communities, to make our streets safer, to fund our police force and our firefighters. Those departments have suffered because of a lot of misappropriation of funds. We need to correct that.
Okay, I want to ask you about an issue that some would say it's somewhat controversial in Sacramento right now. It's called SB 10, bail reform. And basically it's, you have people of color who can't make the bail and they're stuck in jail because of the fact that they don't have the finances to get out. What is your perception of that bill, and do you think it's what we need right now?
My perception of that bill, if it's set up to make things harder for people, it's not a good bill. I feel sorry for the person that got themselves in jail, but there are some people that have gotten themselves in jail and they weren't really meant to be there. And if they're stuck there and maybe they're a parent that is supporting, the only parent supporting the household, to leave them stuck there based on the fact that they can't make bail, we need to have a way for them to make bail so they can get out and support their family. There's a lot of bills that have been passed that are a hindrance to people that can't afford things. We have to stop making bills that are going to restrict people from being able to have a life.
Assemblyman?
So we've been working on that issue since last year, and that was a Rob Bonta bill, and also I think Senator Hertzberg had that also. And one of the things that was glaring is that the proponents of the bill did not work with the judicial system. They worked with the public defenders and a lot of that arena. But I asked when discussing the bill, did you talk to the Superior Court judges? Did you talk to any of the judges going forward? Because they set bail. And so they're the determiners of who set bail. And I absolutely agree that if there's an opportunity to work through the judicial system and all of the experts in that we could come out with a better conclusion. And the rulemaking can be to the benefit of those who are in a bind because they don't have the money. And there might be other alternatives. Again, one of my mantras is one size never fits all, that you have to be adaptive. And so including all of the judicial and the public defenders and the prosecutors and making sure, and even, obviously the police, they need to have a seat at the table also to share their concerns of why, and then make this a roundtable effort to come out to the best compromise that all of the people that are living in this world can come to.
This isn't just a California problem, no. But I'm wondering if California can once again be a leader for the rest of the nation.
I hope so. We usually are. It's been my experience that people look to us to solve the hard problems, and the legislature is not afraid to go and tackle these issues. I think what happens is when a bill isn't cooked and all of the ability to work with those concerned, I think they get stalled, and rightfully so. And so I'm looking forward to, as it comes forward, that they've taken some of the suggestions by me and others on how we can better put this bill together and actually serve the people in an appropriate fashion.
In our remaining minutes here, I want to talk about the Delta, which is important for both recreational use and business and industry. And here in Contra Costa, we love it, right? And so how are we going to protect the Delta for both recreation and business?
Definitely save the Delta by not allowing the tunnels to be built. There are many organizations that are working on cleaning up the Delta. They've done a lot of great work on cleaning up the Delta. And if we can provide the resource there so that we have the recreational use, and it's a beautiful place, and development is happening out there. It's a growing area, and that's going to be better for our economy. We just have to get it maintained. If the tunnels are built and the water is removed, and you're going to just destroy the ecosystem. And environmental issues are very important, and it's a very important ecosystem. We have to keep it preserved.
And of course, you're talking about the governor's Twin Tunnels project that is not so popular in the Delta. Assemblyman, what do you think?
Well, Dave, I've been on the Delta Protection Commission since about 2008, 2009. As an appointed member, and when I went into the legislature, the speaker also appointed me to serve on the Delta Protection Commission. Now I serve on the Delta Conservancy, which is the overseer of the bond money for that. Adamantly opposed to the Twin Tunnels. I've been a vehement opponent of the governor's plan. I used to serve on the Water Parks and Wildlife Committee when I first came into the legislature. And because of my stance and my vocal opposition, was removed from the committee. But he kind of did me a favor by doing so, the speaker, because now I can become even more vocal. I do bills that are protective. If they move left, I move left. If they move right, I move right. It's one of the things that I understand as a general contractor also is that this project will not produce one drop of extra water. And if there's a drought, who pays the debt service, because there will be no water moving through this project. Also, California doesn't do mega projects well. It's been demonstrated that, with the Bay Bridge and now high-speed rail, that you look at how overruns happen, there's no protections in place for the ratepayers that will have to end up paying for this. Recently, Los Angeles pulled out of the funding mechanism. San Diego won't be part of it. Westlands won't be part of it. So we have a water agency, Metropolitan Water Agency in the Southern California region that's trying to create a monopoly on our water. And it's been a boondoggle from the start. I would like to see them look at other alternatives like desal, conservation, storage, which the water bond was supposed to accomplish. And so looking forward to continuing my quest to, and we only have 8 months left of the governor who is a proponent. And so we just keep that fight going.
Okay, we're going to leave it right there. We thank you so much. Thank you for our candidates for answering some of these important questions. And there's probably many more we didn't get to, but we will maybe at a later date. Each candidate will now have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. And we're going to start with Ms. Stewart. Ms. Stewart?
Thank you. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity to speak with the voters. My name is Diane Stewart, and California is out of balance. We need to bring our economy back to balance. We need full and fair funding for our schools. We need to find tax write-offs for our low and middle income families. They have nothing right now. They can't save for a car. They can't save for their kids' at college education. They can't save to buy a house. They can't save for retirement. We can't have people going and working their whole lives away just to pay bills and rent and not have any kind of quality of life. We need to find write-offs for rental property owners. We need to save the Delta. We need to continue to get jobs for veterans. We need housing incentives for public servants like the police, the educators, and the firefighters. All these issues are very important to me, And I want to be your state assembly person to go there and do what you are asking to do, which is to have, just to be able to live in California and afford it, make it affordable. There's a wonderful website called Ballottopia, and it rates our legislators. It gives them a rating. I encourage you to go on Ballottopia and look up your current state assembly person and find out his rating. When I looked it up, a lot of the organizations that rate the legislators have him at a low rating of a D. Now, a D is great because D stands for Diane. And Dianes are fighters. Dianes are warriors. Dianes are leaders. And I want to be a champion for your values. Thank you.
Okay, Assemblyman Jim Frazier.
Well, thank you, Dave, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters. I'm honored to have represented the residents of East County for the past 6 years. This is the best job I've ever had, being able to help people and make a difference every day. East County needs an experienced legislator who can solve problems, get things done for our communities, like road improvements, more money to better quality of education, helping our returning veterans, fighting to protect the Delta, and providing needed services for all of the disadvantaged. We need a leader who stands up for women's reproductive rights also. As your Assembly member, I have focused on these things and made them a priority. But there's more work to be done in East County and for the residents' quality of life. I would like to continue that good work we've all done together and would be honored to earn your vote. And understanding that as a small business owner who has signed the front of a paycheck, working in Sacramento for accountability, working through the budget to bring resources to my district has been an absolute passion. This, as I mentioned before, this has been the best job I've ever had. I get to help people every day, and I want to continue to be that champion for you in Sacramento. Thank you so much, Dave.
That concludes our forum of candidates running for the 11th District State Assembly seat in the June 5th primary election. Once again, the candidates are incumbent Jim Frazier, challenger Diane Stewart, and Lisa Romero, who was not able to join us today. For more information on the candidates, visit the website votersedge.org. To view this broadcast online, go to www.cocovote.us. I'm Dave Padilla, former Contra Costa County Bureau Chief for KCBS. Thank you for watching, and don't forget, vote on June 5th.